a slow demon that stalks us after we have sex. And no matter how far we drive, it'll stalk us forever. It Follows came out in 2015. It was written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, who did Under the Silver Lake, and it stars Micah Monroe as Jay Height. In the Heights. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. That was a totally different movie. In the Heights, sorry. I saw that trailer so much I can't help but say, In the Heights. Okay, so yeah, Micah Monroe pretty much got her start as far as rising up in the ranks and becoming somebody that horror directors and filmmakers rely on to deliver a performance that basically amounts to somebody with blonde hair and a blank 1,000-yard stare and a 1,000-island stare, basically just saying, yeah, I'm just going to basically sleepwalk my way through this whole goddamn thing. And yeah, I apologize to any Pat Benatar fans for the horrible, horrible little intro there. That's one of my favorite Pat Benatar songs. It actually might be my favorite. That or Invincible. Nevertheless, Pat Benatar is nowhere near this movie. She would have infinitely helped it. So, yes, I have seen this before, but decided after recently watching Longlegs, check out my review of that. Kind of on an island with my opinion there. It's probably tipsy as to how I felt. I did not like It Follows initially, and I decided to give it another go. And I'm happy to report that I don't like it anymore. I think I like it a little bit less because it's somehow dumber than I remember. This is the film that got quite a bit of attention, and it does feature Keira Gilchrist, who is in The Good Neighbor, Not State Farm is there, and a few other young actresses and actors, and other assorted characters. And also something that stalks you that can take shape-shifting forms, and it can be a friend, it can be a long-lost love, it can be somebody that is just, that only you can see if you do the bumpy, the grind, the hasty insert, you're knocking the boots, you're doing the backseat bungo. I don't actually think that's how that works. Backseat beach blanket bingo? Whatever the hell it is. You're doing a bunch of bullshit back in a back seat, or a front seat, or possibly getting it in your back seat, and then he switches, and then, oh no, suddenly you've had sex. And now you are basically being stalked by something that only you can see. And yeah, and the only way to get rid of it is to pass it on to somebody. And then they pass it on to somebody. And basically it's like a human centipede of spreading a type of STD, essentially. It's like that STD motor oil. It spreads from one car to the next. And yeah, a demonic entity that only you can see that walks really goddamn slow, and you thought that sex ed didn't teach you anything. You should have paid more attention because now you're fucked again. But not in a good way. Not in a good, drunken or good, just fun college way or behind the dumpster somewhere. Not that I would experience any of this stuff. Let's move on. $1 million budget. It had a $160,000 opening, as opposed to a $160 million opening, which would have been insane. It made about $14.6 million in the U.S. and $22 million worldwide. So it was a pretty big hit. And you could tell that the movie cost $1 million because there were some neat camera tricks. There were a few special effects that were certainly choices. There was one shot near the end that had some rain, which I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? And if you have not seen this movie, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. That's about the most I can give you without getting into any kind of spoilers. But yes, Micah Monroe essentially sleepwalks her way through this and other movies. I'm not saying she's a bad person, but I fail to see why anybody thinks she's a good actress, because her acting has not improved in 10 years. It's actually kind of frightening. It's actually kind of remarkable that she has managed to get roles despite playing the same bland, like coma and soma-induced bitch. And I'm not saying she's a bitch, I'm talking to her characters, because nobody is likable in this movie. Nobody. Yeah, she has something put upon her, and there are a few moments that might trigger some things. For anybody that has experienced assault, that is a trigger warning right there. And the stuff that happened, good God. I'm just going to say right now, passing that thing on is bad enough. But there was a particular scene about 20 minutes in, after the back seat, bump and grind, where I'm like, okay, no, you don't do that. And then she has to get her friends together, and eventually they believe her, and they have to take down this entity somehow. However they do it. However they're able to do it. What is this entity? What does it want? It wants to kill. Where did it come from? I don't fucking know, and I don't really care. Yeah, It Follows isn't very scary. There are a couple decent shots, but Micah Monroe, I'm sorry. She's not good. She's a terrible actress. Stop. Just stop. Don't ever be a lead in something. She can't be a lead actress. I'm not saying she needs to be jaunty and do disco moves and do a whole bunch of stuff like that, but good God, she could at least have a little bit of enthusiasm. Pretend that you are actually human, that you were once human, and you aren't a clone like an Alien Resurrection, which I just recently retro-reviewed, by the way, just in case you didn't figure out. So yeah, it's really about it right there. A sex demon that haunts you. It would have been almost better if they had gone comedy route, like, that Teeth movie. That wasn't great, but still at least made fun, or had some fun with this concept. There are a couple decent scenes, like one that's in on a beach, and one that's in a pool. And I recognize that the less you see of something, the scarier it is. The problem is even the first initial encounter isn't all that scary. There's a few decent body horror effects. I did not think this movie was very scary, and I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to get into spoilers. That's your warning, even though the movie's been out for about 10 years, so everybody knows. Yeah, nevertheless, it's on Netflix and Hulu. Anyway, so yeah, spoilers. So a girl gets killed in the very beginning of that. It's kind of funny. She's calling all upset. Her name's Annie. Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? Annie, you're speeding off into the night to go to the beach. Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? You're calling all panicked, and then the next day you end up dead by a demon. Her leg's broken. All that stuff. It's kind of funny. It's mainly because I just didn't care about any of these characters. So yeah, Mike has all the personality of Driftwood. I did know Killers from Space was featured a little bit in this. That's Peter Graves' movie that the film crew did. That was the later era of the MST3K crew. Mike, Bill, and Kevin. And then the ones that did riff tracks and still do riff tracks. In the middle, they did 4 films called Film Crew. Which actually, those were kind of funny, but they were kind of like the, a bridge between MST3K and Riff Tracks. I think they're on Tubi. They might be on YouTube. They're worth checking out, but I will say that the host segments, not very good. So yeah, Killers from Space, that made me laugh. So yeah, she goes on a date with this guy, Hugh. It turns out his actual name is Jeff. That's always a good sign. Make up a name so your date has to wonder about you. Wonder what you're hiring. Or you're hiding, that is. So he's being stalked. And then they have a date. That doesn't go well. Then they have another date. And they end up fucking in the back seat. The guy's about as good at car sex as I was. And then, basically ends up chloroforming her and knocking her out and taking her under an overpass to explain this stuff. No. You really don't need to do that. But anyway, yeah, it's slow, but it's not dumb. He could have just been describing Micah Monroe's acting ability. Because I'm sure she's smart. She just can't translate it to acting. I'll stop dumping on her one of these days. Maybe when she actually decides to put in a halfway coherent performance. So, the only way is pass it to somebody else, and they pass it to somebody else. But if that person dies, and it just falls back and everything, and it's like a house of cards. Of STD cards. So yeah, she's distraught. There's an old lady stalking her. It's taking weird forms. Interrupts her school time. This isn't scary. It's goofy. There's a guy named Paul, played by Keir Gilchrist, or Christ. He was in The Good Neighbor. State Farm is there. It's like everyone took Quaaludes before filming every scene. There isn't a lot to this. You could have cut down on the driving scenes and a lot of the interminable walking scenes, and you probably would have had an 80-minute movie. Actually, you probably would have been down to about 65 minutes. They had to pad the fuck out of this goddamn thing. And everybody's in the house, including her young sister, and suddenly the sister's there, and then it looked like some guy who was like Big Bird without his costume just walks in. This guy is like 200 feet tall, and then she runs off, says, okay, I'm just leaving. And the music is certainly a choice. It's not very good. It's not that the composer is necessarily bad, but the music, not very good. So, Hugh is Jeff. Jeff explains this stuff. He got it passed to him by a girl. And this guy, Greg, that they knew in high school, well, Jen, Micah Monroe's character, knew in high school. I don't know if I've said that many characters' names, and I don't really give a shit. Because none of them are distinct. None of them are interesting. I will help you by taking you to a beach house thing. And then teaches her how to shoot. And then suddenly, one of her friends is in the water, but the shape-shifting thing shows up at one point. There's this kind of cool shot where Micah Moreau's facing away from this path, and this friend walks towards her, and then suddenly the friend's gone. And because only she can see her, the hair is being grabbed. Oh, I see. It's okay when, a demon pulls a dirty blonde's hair, but when I do it on the beach, then never mind. Nevertheless, she ends up getting freaked out. Paul gets hit by a lawn chair, or beach chair, which is kind of funny. And then the entity takes the form of a boy that looks like he stepped out of Silent Hill. Then a little girl who also looked like she stepped out of Silent Hill. This movie should have been sent to Silent Hill because maybe it would have been scarier. The writing would have been about as shit. And then she takes off in Greg's car and instantly runs into the Children of the Corn in the cornfield. Had she run over the most recent Children of the Corn movie, it would have been better. So, she's in the ER, has a broken arm, but ends up passing it on to Greg. She ends up fucking Greg, because why not? It's not sex sent me to the ER, it's sex while I'm in the ER. That's the new show coming from TLC. Watch it actually happen, because you don't learn anything from the Learn channel anymore. Greg doesn't see this shit, doesn't see anything, nobody's stalking him. But then suddenly, Jen sees Greg enter his house that he happens to live across the street in, which, whatever. Breaks open the window and runs in instead of just opening the door. I guess the door was locked because it was nighttime. And it's not Greg, it's his mother. But it's the ghost pretending to be his mother. With an open robe. She has a nice rack, I remember that. That's mean. She's an actual person, but she did. And attacks and kills and this demon that's looking like his mom basically fucks him to death, I guess. Whatever. It's like a succubus, but with slightly, I don't know, less, like, alarming shit about it. Slightly less horns. So, everybody basically decides that we need to go to a certain area to trap this thing. After Micah Moreau basically freaks out, they're going to go down 8 Mile. I guess they're in Detroit. I didn't know they were in Detroit. I forgot about that. Paul basically before this offers to be somebody to pass it along to, so she'll be okay. And the idea is they have all these electronics that they apparently either took from their house or took from houses in the neighborhood that were abandoned that still worked, and they're going to shock it to death. And then a demon shows up, or this thing shows up and just starts throwing furniture and everything. Hits Micah Moreau in the head, and if she had a working brain, that would actually hurt. I'll stop dumping on her one of these days. And just throwing all this stuff. And the idea, because they were able to shoot it earlier on the beach and wound it, I guess they get this sheet, they're able to shoot it in the head, and it falls into the pool, and then it tries to get her, but then it bleeds out in the pool. Or that form of it does. And then she fucks Paul and gives it to Paul, and then they're walking down the street, and then life goes on. It follows again a sequel, apparently. Christ knows why. Yeah, I didn't like this at all. This gets an F. I'm sorry. This does get an F. I normally don't rate, like, older movies, even if they're only under a decade old. But yeah, it's not good. So, agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.